The engineer is just not worth it, not in the slightest. It is overpriced and underwhelming for what it is. I've made this claim before and many other people bring it up as well. This has been a huge problem ever since the nerf that happened in March 2023. But what is exactly the problem? Well, it's stated the engineer is meant to be a jack of all trades tower, basically meaning it can have flight, lead, and hidden detection. But the problem here is the engineer herself, the actual tower with the nail gun, will have those perks, aka, hidden and stuff. The sentries that make up 85% of the engineer's DPS at max will not have those perks, meaning they lose out on hidden, flight, and lead. This for me just kills the tower. Some people may argue that giving the sentries flight, lead, and hidden detection would be overpowered, but there's a unique way to counter this, which I will be talking about at the end of this video, where I give my opinions and thoughts on how to buff the engineer. It is true that you can use the engineer in the early, mid, and late game, but why? Why use a tower that is decent at all things when you can use a single tower that specializes at a certain task or one or two tasks? In the early game, the engineer requires you to invest a bit into it for it to properly defend. In a standard fallen match, it can't be placed on the first wave, so you will be leaking the first wave. This can be crucial in game modes like Polluted Wastelands 2 or Badlands 2. In the mid game, it is where it can be decent, but compared to the competition, it can be easily outclassed. The engineer is technically the most expensive tower in the game, and there are other towers that are cheaper in the shop that can just do as well, if not better than the engineer in the mid game. Although the engineer alone will struggle on hidden bosses unless you invest a substantial amount into the engineer. And finally, in the late game, there are just much better options. Obviously the accelerator, but also the pursuit, which people are underlooked in the game. With the commander buff, pursuit can actually beat the engineer in DPS while having way better splash damage. Also, the minigunner got reworked recently, and that beats the engineer depending on how much you have on the map, of course. But usually with the commander, you can easily beat the engineer with a 5,000 coin tower. And also, like I mentioned, the engineer has splash damage, but that's a really weak claim to defend the engineer. For around 50k, you get like 30 splash damage, while you can get a tower that excels in that area, and it would do better for a cheaper cost in the game. Obviously, I'm talking about the mortar, but also Demo Man can give the engineer a run in its money, especially with its cost efficiency. And guys, hear me out, the paintballer actually has some really good splash damage. Another point people bring up about the engineer is that it's really useful in hardcore mode. It is useful, yes, but last I checked, you need to be hardcore to obtain the engineer with gens, and also other game modes like Pizza Party, Badlands, and stuff lack or don't completely have flight and or lead enemies, so usually it's not a concern for the average player. To sum this all up, I disapprove some points people bring up when they want to defend the engineer, and of course you can point out some points where I might have been wrong, or you can add on to those points. Basically, I see the engineer as mixing soda flavors. It's like, if you mix all of them, that doesn't necessarily mean they're good. Their solo flavors may be good, but if you mix them, they all may be bad. So as a balancer myself, how would I fix this? I came up with two options. The first option will be the slight buff one, which the balancers are in the process of doing. I would give the minigunner sentry lead penetration, because with the new minigunner rework, it is confirmed that miniguns can practically penetrate lead. And I'll also make it the engineer itself, not the sentries, be able to bypass the enemy shield, like the 95% on those Vic guys in hardcore, or the Fallen Guardian defense. You get the idea. I would probably buff the War Machine Sentry to either have hidden detection or give it more DPS like the balancers are doing right now. Overall, these are very slight engineers. Very slight buffs to buff the engineer. And I get the balancers are not trying to make an accelerator too. Forgot to mention, the engineer, yes, has the highest raw DPS in the game without commander, and apparently it's meant to quote-unquote encourage different playstyles. Now this view is really bad overall. The commander will always exist. Simply, if you want to encourage different playstyles, you need to have a special game mode that bans the commander. As long as commander exists, people will use it. You just have to be dumb if you don't bring commander. Anyways, back to the engineer buff. This will be a soft rework idea, and I think it's really unique and can make the engineer fun and useful. The engineer on level 4 will gain a bar similar to the jester that would look something like this. It's on the screen. The bar will basically grant the sentries hidden, lead, or flight detection for 10 to 15 seconds, and this will have a cooldown of 30 to 45 seconds depending if this ever gets added and the balancers can pick, and similar to the jester, you have to click to activate it. I think this is a really fun way to soft rework the engineer. It will make the engineer a little skill based while making the tower interesting compared to like accelerator, which is just raw DPS. The possibilities are pretty much endless, and of course if you're a balancer that is somehow watching this, you can take these ideas and change them if you want, or just you're just a regular guy if you are. Thanks for watching. But with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video, and of course if you disagree with any of this, leave your opinions down below in the comments, but keep it civil, guys.
Mo, お父ちゃまのそばへ行くのよ。ねえ、もうすぐ、お父ちゃまのところへ行くの。